All right. Good morning to the and to everyone that is connecting from everywhere. At this point in time, I'm going to introduce the topic entitled Internationalization at Home, Enhancing Students' Intercultural Knowledge, Critical Thinking Skills, and More Without the Need to Travel. Today's topic is going to be introduced and presented by Professor Eric Tsui, who's going to guide us throughout. And before we begin, I would just like to remind you, as usual, to take notes and also be ready to ask questions at the end. At this point in time, I will let Professor Tsui guide us in the lesson.
Okay, can I start now?
Yes, you can.
Thank you very much. I think this is an attractive title, Internationalization at Home, and using that as a way to enhance students' intercultural knowledge, critical thinking skills, and more importantly, there's no need to travel, because very often when we hear about this word internationalization, there are always an association about the need to travel, and this is an exception, a good exception. Right, so I'm going to spend the seminar on the four key topics. Firstly, just to clarify the concept of what is internationalization at home. What does that really mean? And I'll actually introduce the term called COIL. I'll leave it to that moment when I elaborate the term and explain what it is. Then I would like to illustrate to you how COIL activities can be designed and can be used to broaden students' understanding of the discipline that they are taking, as well as deepen the intercultural knowledge. That's African and Western, African and Asian and Western, and more. Cultural knowledge, which is an important part of critical skills needed in the 21st century. Then the next part of my talk is an illustration, demonstration, and also a recollection of many of the successful core activities that I've conducted with my students and students from foreign universities on, as I mentioned earlier, on broadening their discipline knowledge as well as deepening their intercultural knowledge. Finally, I'll list to you certain resources and tips on how to start these courses, okay? All right, so internationalization home is not a new concept, right? So abbreviated as IH, okay? It started in Europe back in 2001. That's about a quarter of a century ago, through many changes, but it's still an evolving paradigm. So in other words, it's not a rigid definition, but over time, it has evolved over different types of meanings as well. But basically, it's about carrying out some kind of internationalized activities while remaining on campus in the local university. Well, let me give you some examples of IH so that you don't feel completely, unfamiliar with it. You may be already doing something at your institution, whether that's a secondary school or a tertiary institution. And that is you may be adopting a foreign system, a teaching system, an assessment system. You may be adopting a textbook or using an open, source textbook that is developed by a foreign author. You may be, having students, sending your students, having your local students studying alongside with other international students who come to your country, come to your university to study together. So you're almost like importing foreign students into your classroom, right? You may invite a person in person or online, excuse me, to deliver a class to your local subject, right? Courses, of course, to your students. And you may also, like our university, quite commonly invite foreign professors to come over and deliver a course in what we call a block or intensive mode over 2 weekends, and the course is over. But nevertheless, we actually invite the professor from overseas to come over, right? So, these activities and more are rightly qualified to be a kind of internationalization at home activities. So you can see that there's an international element, in the planning, orchestration, or delivery of an activity, academic activity, inside the local institution. So I mentioned about the term COIL. COIL stands for Collaborative Online International Learning, and it's a kind of IH, okay? At PolyU, sometimes we also refer it as a global or a virtual classroom. I like the term global classroom very much because that typically represent and convey the meaning that this classroom is global and is covering students not just from PolyU, but the general term, the more general internationally accepted term is COIL, Collaborative Online International Learning. So under COIL, there are different types of activities, which I'll elaborate more later on. Now I started with this, picture, this little picture, and I think it's a nice depiction of explaining to you what exactly is a kind of a COIL activity. There are many variants that you can develop for a COIL activity, but whatever that is, as long as it conforms to what I'm going to specify to you, it will be qualified as a kind of a COIL activity. So look at this. This is like a sectional view of a classroom, a physical classroom, assume that is, in PolyU, all right? Got PolyU flat. And we have PolyU students sitting nicely in the classroom. We have a teacher. And on this, on the front of the classroom, you can see that, there are Zoom or Temtech sessions, like what we're doing now, right? Beaming students from other universities joining the class, okay? And there could be students, there could be teachers from other university as well. Now, that is the basic concept, that PolyU students and teachers from a foreign university or one or more foreign universities together participate in a class. Now, I'm going to ask you to interpret this sentence flexibly, right? That attendance can be in real time. So like now, I'm talking in Hong Kong and you hear me in Africa or in Europe, right, at the same time. But it can also be asynchronously. In other words, I say something that got recorded, and then you replay it or you observe it later. Like if I post something on the bulletin board and you check the board later on, said this, you still got my message, you still see what I have written down, but not at the same time, right? There's a delay, so that is asynchronous, okay? So, and another variation of this is, it's not manifest in this picture. You see all the PolyU students sitting, sitting down in the classroom. Not necessarily. PolyU students can also be virtually dispersed anywhere, globally, right? So, in other words, this is just one instantiation of a COIL activity. Now, that's as far as the PolyU classroom is concerned. Now you see that there are 4 other pictures that's being put up around it, and I would ask you to interpret these additional pictures, to be the classroom environment of the foreign universities. All right, so you can see that what PolyU students are attending classes, in the classroom on PolyU campus, right? Other university students can be also attending the same class, linked up with PolyU in their own classroom, or they could be attending anywhere depending on what the university allows and what the teacher allows. Okay, so that is the concept. If you let it sink better into your brain, this is the concept of COIL, Collaborative Online International Learning, right? So it has to be collaborative. So right now, I wouldn't say that my session right now talking to you is collaborative. Why? Because my students are not attending, right? So there's no student and student collaboration. Okay, and for COIL to happen, it must be online, right? Live online or asynchronous online. Okay, and thirdly, there must be an international dimension, right? And with that, I will interpret that there has to be students from university from different countries and or attendees from different races and ethnic groups, constituting the base of the learners in order for COIL to be qualified. Okay, so if you start to grab this concept, it is very exciting. When I first understand about the power of COIL, I felt very excited. I felt very motivated, inspired. Why? Because it's a win-win-win situation. For what? For students, for the course, for the university, and for the teachers as well, right? So more specifically, the COIL brings forward and broader international exposure for students and teachers as well, as I say. It enables students to deepen appreciation the cultural, environmental, social values, right, in rapidly developing globalized economies. It enables students to develop a growth mindset with global outlook. Who doesn't want it? Extremely valuable skill, right? To build resilience, foster personal and academic development, right? Expand the intercultural knowledge. And, if you partner with some universities that are more forefront, your student could be learning together with the bright brains of the world. So the most exciting element that I enjoy is that COIL can be enacted without requiring students to travel. You see, it can benefit all students, not just those who are lucky enough to get a scholarship or funding to travel to overseas for a week, a semester, or even longer. But, using COIL activity, everybody, and I insist, everybody, every student in the class can enjoy. Second group of benefits, it is for, the learning and teaching. So teachers will be very happy. Excuse me, why? Because, conduct of COIL facilitates the design of new pedagogies, new instructional design, right? A new dimension that otherwise just a physical classroom with a monotonous cohort of students would not be able to do, okay? It enables a range of core skills to be nurtured because you are banging together your student with students of a foreign university, possibly a different race, right, where they may speak different languages and accustomed to different culture. So there's enormous opportunity for the two groups of students to learn from each other, okay, and by interacting, okay, and it offers a refreshing learning experience for everybody, for the teacher, for the students, okay. And lastly, the COIL can also be scalable to a large extent. The existing university, you don't need to erect a new building. You don't have to wait. As long as you beef up your IT infrastructure and up to an extent the teacher can handle, you can scale up your COIL activities to more than the current size of your class, and that's also extremely handy and beneficial. Now, one element I keep on emphasizing is in addition to pairing classes that are studying the same disciplines, we should also explore, and I have explore putting together classes of different disciplines, but enabling them to learn from each other's culture, right? So this intercultural element is also a door opener to creating COIL classrooms, okay, if you understand what I mean. Because even though that, for example, you pair a group of students from business and pair a group of students from social sciences, they can still have much to gain if you steer them to, appreciate and interact and gain intercultural knowledge from different groups, from these two different groups of students, right? Let alone their own discipline knowledge. And everybody knows writing on the wall, in today's world, 21st century, going into the future is even more important for, our graduates and future graduates to be well-versed and familiar and adaptive to global culture, different culture, because chances are, whatever projects you work on, it will be virtual project teams, right? They will be members from different organizations, from different countries, working in different locations on different tasks. Yet you have to collaborate deeply with them. So, appreciating the norms, the culture, the language, and many other factors turns out to be a critical part of success. All right, so I think I'm a little bit ahead of this slide anyway, so I'm not going to talk for each of those bullet points, other than to say that when we try to cultivate a COIL class, focus not just on the pairing of classes from universities, students studying the same discipline, studying the same level and same subject, but you can also pair students from different ethnic groups, especially on because of their culture, okay, or difference in culture. So far, our first reaction to COIL is probably, including myself, it's probably about holding live simultaneous classes. While that is indeed, one of the most common way to conduct COIL activities, it's not the only way. But however, be that as it may, conducting real-time COIL activities, what can we do? We can have joint lectures between the teachers from the two universities or more. We can have dialogue between the students from the two universities in real time. We can have panel discussions. We can have role play by different groups of students. We surely can have Q&A by the students and also by the teachers, of course. And this is how should I describe it? It's not exactly a photo with an image, with a cartoon image in there, right? But it's it's originally an image, a photo, right? So this is my virtual self. Yeah, that's right. My virtual self appearing in the Arizona State University with my students, beaming to them in the on the screen. Okay. This is again my virtual equivalent, talking to a class of students in Spain at IE University. So that was live, okay? What about if we cannot find a mutually, the common time to conduct COIL activities? Well, don't be distressed, and all is not lost. We can conduct asynchronous activities in COIL or global classrooms. And what does this manifest in, or what can this manifest in? It can manifest in replaying recorded lectures. Each lecturer recorded part of his or her lecture and then got replayed in the other teacher's class later on, not at the same time. And students work on commonly designed activities afterwards. Online discussions, right, that truly live up to the expectation of asynchronous collaboration. We can set common assignments, which I've done so before, common assignments between the two universities, and students go and tackle those assignments. Each teacher responsible for marking the student's assignment, right? And then teachers between them compare notes about the focus of the student's approach. And by that, that way, the teacher gain a lot in understanding about the focus, the norms, the cultural values that is being typically adopted by their own students, and at the same time appreciate how foreign students may take a different approach. And I can only assume that that would in turn benefit the students in the next cohort, because the teacher will make appropriate adjustment to the design and delivery of the same subject in future deliveries, so that the subject become more attentive and inclusive for students from different cultures to appreciate. And to me, the most difficult level and the most mature level to achieve in COIL is to design joint projects where students from each university need to join force to form a project team, right? The one project team which consists of students from each of the participating universities, be it two or more, okay? And then together they collaborate, together they discuss, they solve the problems, complete the project, and together they present their results and recommendations to their teachers, okay? That would be, a highly complex setup, but at the same time, I would think that it would deliver the most beneficial results, because that is deep collaboration, and it's also very, very close to what the real world is happening at the moment. And look at this, we start to do joint project teams. We are really exposing our students. We are bringing forward the opportunities for our students to work with their international partners, right? Even before they graduate. Isn't that wonderful? Rather than wait for them to come out and then discover, probably via cultural shock, that they'll be working in virtual project teams. So by doing COIL, we have every chance of bringing forward this experience, right, to students while they are still enrolled and not yet graduate. Okay, I mentioned about asynchronous collaborations, and for me and my students, we use, for example, there are many you can choose, but we happen to use the MeWe platform. You can try that, mewe.com, mewe.com, mewe.com platform, which is typically a simple collaboration platform. You can set it up into groups. You can meet students voluntarily. You can also filter them and moderate the group. You can moderate discussions and yeah, so because it's not linked to any university, so you can open up mewe.com, set up a group, and invite students from your university and students from other participating universities to join. And this is how, we compose a joint class, a joint core activities asynchronously. It's amazing. If you work, if you design the right set of activities for these students, together the class become a very powerful set of eyes and ears for everybody, not just for the teacher, because their postings would benefit everybody. The discussions would benefit everybody. And the teacher has as much to learn from the average student as well. Now, in PolyU, for the last 5 years, I've been holding a lot of core activities, global classrooms. And as I expressed earlier, my emphasis has been very much on enhancing the intercultural knowledge of my students. So I'd like to, to explain to you a bit more about my focus in setting up these core activities and core sessions, right? So, you can deduce easily because my focus is to enhance the intercultural knowledge of my students. And at PolyU being in Asia, I would say that 98 or 99% of our students are Asian. In fact, they're Chinese, right? So my focus has always been through COIL to expose students to European culture, Anglo-Saxon culture, African culture, and other types of culture, not just Asian, right? Because we're already Asian. So you can see that I have deliberately singled out separate regions in the world, which I especially target to design or broker COIL activities. I aim for Australia, and especially in western part of Australia, because Western Australia is a state in Australia. Western Australia is in the same time zone as Hong Kong, so very convenient. Okay, Europe and Africa comes in a very nice time zone for us to collaborate with higher chances of sharing mutual class time. Why? Because for PolyU classes, for postgraduate classes, we always have it at 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. our time, which translates to anything between, I suppose, 11:30 to a 2:30 start, 11:30 a.m. to a 2:30 p.m. start of class in Europe and also in Africa. And in America, I targeted, but it's a little bit difficult because most of the American cities, they are not in a friendly time zone that I can conduct real-time synchronous classes with PolyU. So I've tried, I did hold some, and I've also tried it with asynchronous as well. So this is a record of what me and several of my colleagues have been collaborating with the last few years. You don't have to go into the detail, but you can run your eyes over the table. For example, in the first column, you can see that we have managed to conduct core activities with many European universities in Germany, Italy, Austria, Spain, and in Russia, in USA as well, although it's difficult. We've done Japan, Asian and Asian. We've done Israel. And in Africa, so far I've only done with Stellenbosch University in South Africa. I love to, conduct one or more with Moroccan universities, if that can be brokered. And then if you look at the second column, you can see that some of the subjects, specific disciplines that I teach, business process management, innovation and entrepreneurship, knowledge management, innovation and technology. But there are also some on subjects that are outside my forte, like cross-cultural management, e-government, tourism, strategic management, international management. So the reason I can broker a core activity in those subjects that is not on my forte is precisely because I'm focusing on the intercultural element. So furthermore, you can look at the last column. I would say there's a good spread of undergraduate subjects and postgraduate subjects. Okay, the last semester has been very active for me in terms of core activities through deliberate planning and through a bit of luck as well. I managed to hold more core classes than I originally have planned. Okay, which is good. So now I'm in a good position to summarize all of these activities from the last semester with highlights to show you, as well as a recollection of some of the highlights of other core activities that I've conducted before the last semester. All right. So again, if you run your eyes over this table, you can see that on the second row, that is a real full-time COIL class, right? Because it's a joint class in real time, synchronous mode, and guess what? It's with South African University, Stellenbosch University. Okay, so I'll tell you a bit more and show you a bit more about what we have done later on. In this next row down, in the second row there, you can see that it's an asynchronous activity where I broke a collaboration with Italian University, Tor Vergata University of Rome in Italy, and the lecturer over there, Professor Leone, she delivered part of the lecture and record part for me, and I do the same, and we exchange the recording, vice versa, and then after the two classes have conducted separately the classes, our students come together to collaborate on a bulletin board, as well as provide feedback via surveys and interviews. On the last row, you can see that it's a kind of synchronous and asynchronous activities where I provide guest lecture to a partnering or a few partnering institutions, right? And then my students get to know about the feedback and the preferences of the foreign students that I have taught to, and together they also complete surveys and interviews about what they think of as the input and preferences responses to provided by the foreign students, okay, as compared to what they provide me, as compared to what my students provide me for the same question. Okay, so many sections here. I'm not going to go through all of them, obviously, but as I said, this is a high-level summary of the various classes I've held. So have a look at this one, Poly and Stellenbosch in real time. So a COIL, it was carried out in March. So if you've been following what I say, it's a live class. So, it's like the teacher, me in this case. This is a reenacted picture, right? But it's the same situation where my students are in the classroom and the South African students also attending the class. Now, in reality, it happened at a very tough time. I'll say that again. In reality, it happened at a very tough time because I remember the Poly U class time was 12:30 p.m. Hong Kong time, and that translates to something like 6:30, right, a.m. For South African time. So I really appreciate the South African students getting up and attend the class and attending proactively, right? So wonderful. I'm always amazed by the enthusiasm and the eager to learn of African students. So in terms of the pedagogical design that I've enacted for this classroom, right? So you can see that, as I mentioned to you, students from the two institutions and a class by Poly U teacher, at the scheduled PolyU class time. Okay. Students exchange view and discuss issues real time through the chat line on Zoom. Students provide feedback on learning experience, collaboration, intercultural issues, and the covered topics, preferred topics as expressed by students from South Africa versus students from Hong Kong on the same set of topic because of the same lecture, right? They express their view and preferences via a survey. Teacher conducts follow-up interviews with selective students for a more in-depth understanding, right? And teacher reviews the survey and interview summaries to find out what can be improved, how to expand the delivery and the teaching method to cater for the students from multiple culture, right? Enhance inclusiveness. So if you have a look at the feedback provided by my students, has been very, very positive, right? And I'm very glad that from good, very good to superb, that's about 90% of the output of the responses already. Co-learning with teachers and students from foreign institutions, has that enriched their experience? A great deal and a lot, right? Again, the top three nearly cover about 97% of the responses. What about listing the most interesting topic? Now, this is not for competition, but it's something for me as the teacher to learn. I find that Asian students in Hong Kong have a different set of prioritized topics compared to African students. So it's really much for me to find out more about why there is such a disparity. Maybe because of the social norms, maybe because of the background, maybe because of the culture. Anyway, very interesting. Maybe the teaching style, I don't know. Okay. So when I ask my students, has the global classroom deepened your appreciation of intercultural knowledge? It's a resounding yes, right? So 100% for a great deal, a lot, and somewhat. Well, even for a great deal and a lot, that's about 69%. So, and more anecdotal response from my students, they enjoyed the global classroom because of the diversity of perspectives, right, and experience expressed by students from other culture and other universities that enhance their critical thinking, right? The variety of the viewpoints and the life experiences students from many cultures offer a global classroom. It's what you like. You can learn from different culture students and how they study, and they can give you some different opinions by different backgrounds. The learning journey is deep, and experience from others make one value and appreciate your own a lot more. So, all in all, we have to say that has been very well received by the students. So when I further asked my students, would you like to see more global classrooms to be held in the future? Again, it's a resounding, positive response. Absolutely, and yes, cater for 84%. So, of course, not everything would benefit from global classroom. I think it's appropriate to leave the teacher to decide. But out of these statistics and response, I'm very much charged up to, whenever possible, design more global classroom activities for my students in the future. So, okay, maybe I should show this one. That's asynchronous collaboration this time with recordings, and then followed by individual lectures by each lecturer in the participating university. So the collaboration is with Tor Vergata University in Rome. Okay, and this time we remain with cultural knowledge, but also is related to the discipline of knowledge management. So I pair up with Professor Leone from the Italian University, and we are both lock on teaching a class on the value of culture in knowledge management. So I first, because we cannot find a mutually convenient time to hold the class together in real time, But first, as the PolyU teacher, I deliver a talk to PolyU students on particular focus on the Eastern perspective to knowledge management. I recorded this part. I passed to Professor Leone, but she to my students, okay? And then she can replay my part to her students when her class comes up, after mine. The recording students, she does the same. We invite the students to discuss and share views on bulletin board, and they are also being approached to complete surveys and interviews, especially about learning experience and how that affects their motivation to learn more. I further review and I learn about the result, and I take action on further improving the design, the coverage, and the delivery of the course in the next cohort. Okay, I'll give you more information later on before we finish. So this setup has also received very positive feedback from students. As you can see, superb, very good, and good. Cover nearly all but one of the responses. For learning to teach your students, once again, a great deal and a lot takes up 2/3 of the responses already. There are differences between the preferred topics or the most favorite topics between the Hong Kong student and the Italian student. Once again, there are interesting information, should I say, interesting information for me to analyze. So, it's a very important question. Has this global classroom deepened your appreciation of intercultural knowledge? And I'm very glad to see a great deal with 16%, a lot with 58%. That's just on the first two is 74%. So 3/4 answer positive. Great output. Okay. So you agree that joint lectures from two teachers is an effective way to deepen your understanding? Once again, absolutely, very much. That already constitutes 58%. Okay. Okay, so you can trust my words that the student response has been very positive again. Now, maybe we can have a look at some of the work that I've done before the last semester, because I've been doing this for 5 years. So I'm going to go back to some of the activities that I've done before the last semester, and this time I'm going to show you some of the teachers' responses. Okay. So I'm going to reply response or feedback from Dr. Husini from the Lappeenranta University of Technology in Finland, and I collaborated a lecture with his class. Me and my students collaborate a core activity with his class on KM systems. So this is what Dr. Husinki has to say when asked to provide feedback.
Hi, my name is Henry Husinki, and I'm working as Assistant Professor of Business Analytics at LUT University, Finland. PolyU Professor Eric Tsui gave a visiting lecture on my course, Knowledge Management Systems and Technologies. After his insightful guest lecture, we had a Q&A session between Professor Tsui and my students. The feedback of the lecture and the Q&A session was fantastic, as all my students thought that Eric's guest lecture was really up to date and thought-provoking. My students were able to gain different perspectives on the KM, because usually we are only seeing knowledge management as a corporate issue, but Eric's guest lecture opened up this issue of personal knowledge management, how really important it is to the personal knowledge in order to establish lifelong learning and career development of my students. Overall speaking, it was really fruitful collaboration, and I would like to continue on this track also in the future. Thank you.
So thank you. That was from Dr. Usini from Finland. And now we turn to American professor at Arizona State University, who I've been collaborating with Professor Drummond Neto, and he is a clinical professor at Arizona State, and he teaches the e-business class. And note that I don't teach the e-business class, but this time it's about intercultural collaboration. So equally, you can hear about the response from Professor Neto.
So hi everyone, I am Ribadavia Drummond Neto. I am a clinical professor at the W.P. Carey School at Arizona State University. I had the pleasure of having Professor Eric Tsui of the Hong Kong Polytechnic University as a lecturer for my Management 400, my seniors, my cross-cultural management course. Those classes I teach here are fully enrolled. I don't have a single empty seat. Not only with students from the United States, but I have all nationals here. I have Africans, I have Brazilians, I have people from Spain, from France, from Korea, from Australia. So it's a highly international setting. Dr. Choi's talk explored aspects of cross-cultural management, international business, and decision making. I think I noticed my students were highly motivated by his talk, and it indeed generated so much interest that questions seemed never ending, and I had to interrupt in order to send my students to their next meeting. Students were able to establish a correlation to what they were learning in classroom with me. For example, Hofstade's framework for cross-cultural management, motivation across cultures, negotiation in international settings. So they were able to relate those theoretical concepts to the reality of Asian cultures, thanks to Dr. Choi's talk. Students spent a long time with him on Q&A, and they also asked me for another session on the same topic. So overall speaking, I think this was a great experience that enabled curriculum enrichment while giving students direct access to a top-notch speaker. So here at ASU, we see those initiatives, like the ones we had with Dr. Eric Tsui, as quintessential to taking ASU international efforts to new frontiers. So I hope to keep this collaboration ongoing. My best regards. Thank you.
All right, so that was from Professor Neto from Arizona State University. Now, next and the last one, how about listening to one of my students' feedback?
It was like a culture shock for us, because having like predominantly Asian learning and teaching experience, like in Asian cultures usually we are more like we listen to the professor's talk, and then it's kind of like it's not really an interaction, it's more of just them imparting knowledge to us and us just retaining. But for example, in Arizona State University, in University of New Orleans, it felt more like a discussion in class. So that's something that really stuck with me, because it was as if every single thing that the professors they would require like answer or response from the students. They would want them to have input. Whereas in like Asian cultures, it's just the teacher talking about the lecture slides and not actually getting the input from students. And also in like Hallyu, for example, during the lectures, usually when the teachers ask at the end of the lecture, do you guys have any questions? Nobody will reply. But then surprisingly, in like Western cultures, I feel like the Q&A session is even longer than the lecture itself. So they really love giving response and actually trying to reinforce the topics and making sure that they actually understand it through asking and also like giving their own opinions, which was something that was really interesting.
Right, now that sounds something simple, but I'm really glad that this is coming out from the mouth of the student, because as a professor, we always encourage students to participate, to collaborate, to speak out. But most students, at least in Asia, are introverts. They hesitate to speak out. So putting them in the core activities, I can see that has deeply transformed her thinking and others, right? Because they now appreciate that, in fact, keeping quiet is not the norm. Actually, active participation is the norm. So it's a great thing that has achieved certain types of impact, which I'm very glad to report. So finally, before I wrap up the seminar, I went back to the data that I've collected over the years, and I have furthermore to update you on deepening intercultural knowledge, and many students support it. And as I said, it is important to adjust our teaching style and cover the area in order to ensure that students appreciate the different types of culture, to adapt to accommodate the different types of culture, so that they can carry out their professional activities effectively. On broadening discipline knowledge, it clearly there's a lot of evidence to show that there are benefits for students and the teachers by fusing together classrooms between the multiple universities on the same discipline. It doesn't have to be on the same topic. It doesn't have to be at the same level, right? I've tried, for example, grouping together an undergraduate class with a postgraduate class in the same area. And in fact, it is very interesting as well, because it turns out that the postgraduate class provides some kind of guidance, and the undergraduate class students, being young and inexperienced, in fact, they also have advantage. They have a fountain of ideas, right? So together, I can only conclude that the two classes benefit from each other, and they cross-fertilize their knowledge very well. On cultural sensitivity and local relevance, I don't think I need to elaborate any more. Depth and practicality of the feedback. Yes, I also discovered that based on different culture, different students from different universities tend to have different styles in responding. Some respond with detailed information, some respond quite briefly. So that's subject to further research, but nevertheless, it has also provided me with interesting and challenging information to investigate more. There are also merits in interconnecting topics, just so that because of using global classrooms, students from different culture, different universities, they may start to use different terms, okay, which may trigger lateral thinking, which may add to to additional understanding and broadening students' interpretation of certain topics and principles as well. So that has also proved to be beneficial. Suggestion for refinement, yes, I would follow up with what students have suggested in terms of adjusting the pace of talking, a more streamlined structure for the topics. So these and more will be looked into, and improvement will be made in future delivery of those subjects. So finally, before we finish, are there reasons for conducting COIL? I think they're ample, right? Sorry, there should be ample reasons for conducting COIL. They're well positioned to support learning in the 21st century, enhance P2P learning and learning from multiple sources. They facilitate educational research. Second, COIL brings forward and broaden exposure to global knowledge, deepen appreciation of various culture, enable the development of skills and new pedagogies. Furthermore, it benefits all students, not needing to travel, but nor does it require a significant number of infrastructural investments. Final global benefit, highly contributory, but long under-leveraged internationalization at home initiative. Every university should be doing more. Facilitate collaboration, teaching and educational research between and among institutions. What a wonderful opportunity. Right? So these opportunities are relevant, they're significant, they're unique. Okay, so with that, I think I've spoken enough, and maybe I'll pass it back to the MC and we can invite for Q&A. How's that?
Exactly. So at this point in time, we're going to now go to the Q&A as stated by Professor Eric Tsui. And I think there's some questions in the messages.
Okay, can you read out the main, please?
No problem. The first question states the following. How can shy or introverted students benefit from these activities?
Did you say how can shine? SHY, is that right?
Exactly.
Well, I think what I've shared is spot on. I'm not sure whether my students are shy, but they're introverts. So, but you'll be surprised. You should try COIL and asynchronous activities, because if you have tried that, I would say that you may not ask this question. Why? Because every student who initially are seen as shy are not shy in an online environment. They tend to post more, even though that they may not be showing their face. They tend to interact more with peers and to teachers. Okay, so free them up. Let them collaborate and interact with other peers, especially in an online environment. It is sometimes, I could be wrong here, but sometimes it's in the classroom where the atmosphere could be a bit formal or tense, and under peer pressure, a student may be inhibited or less willing to speak, especially when other people are looking into him or her in the eyes. But when a student is behind a virtual session, especially not turning on the camera, you'll find that that person is more open, more willing, and more active in participating. So try that, and if the situation still persists, then I would say that you have to design, participative activities to, to get them going, so that they don't just sit there. They have something to do. Okay.
And the second question states the following. Can participating in these programs help me if I want to study abroad later?
Absolutely. Why? One of the main benefits is by using COIL, university and your teachers are providing, an earlier exposure for you, the very student, to gain international experience, right? To gain connections with your peers in overseas universities, right? So all these will gradually build up your confidence, your language comprehension, and your ability and fluency in dealing with foreign nationals. And all these you can cite in your CV, you can talk about it in any interview, and you will be demonstrating that you're benefiting from all these experience when you're actually talking to other people. So I would say that I don't see any disadvantages in attending COIL activities with regard to ensuring that you have you can start a truly international career.
Thank you very much.
And in fact, let me show you more. That very Asian student that shared her feelings with us in the video. She is one of my top students, and it was during COVID where we don't have any classes. So let alone no physical classes, no in-person classes. So we have only online classes, and let alone the international program. We have suspended, like all universities, suspended the traveling of all students. So she was in Hong Kong for all the 3 years with no international travel, despite the fact that she already got a scholarship to travel to a foreign university. So when she came out to apply for a job, she was asked the very question about what international experience do you have. She told me, and then she said, "Professor, thank you very much of your COIL lessons." She told the interviewer precisely this during the COVID period, and the interviewer understands, and she got the job. So I'm very pleased to hear that as something that COIL is being seen as at least a substitute, right, during the COVID period, at least to enable students to still acquire the international cultural experience.
That's a very wonderful story. The next one says, what are some of the most common challenges institutions face when implementing such programs?
Very good question. Excellent question. In addition to what I'm going to tell you in the next 2 minutes, I also encourage you to search articles and read. One of the most common challenges is to find a commonly mutual time for the live lesson, right? It's very difficult because every university is spinning its own way. It's allocating the class time by itself. So it's almost like, I shouldn't use this word, but it's almost like a miracle that you can overlap a class time with the brokered university. So if you can, congratulations. If not, you should look for asynchronous collaboration or pre-recorded, and then we play the presentations. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is sometimes the problem is guess what, with the teacher, right? Because the teacher may be hesitant to conduct these things. It's new, it's very bold, right? And it's new, just new. So many teachers I find that are hesitant and maybe somehow find ways to bypass it or excuses for not conducting, right? Unfortunately, right? And another problem could be with the university, because it could be some rigidness, right, in the course structure. It may not allow any particular classes to be turned into a call session. It may, even at PolyU here, by default, all classes have to be conducted in person. But luckily, our senior management also appreciate the power of COIL. So if it is a COIL activity, then of course, the discretion can be applied to, send the students away so that they can attend it either in the classroom or in other places. So university regulations could be an obstacle. Finding a common mutually time, it's an obstacle. And teachers, non-readiness are also an obstacle.
Thank you very much, Professor Eric Tsui. I think we've come to the end of our question session. And with this, I would also love to thank everyone that has attended our session today and everyone that is going to continue seeing these lectures online. But before that, I would also love to give a huge thank you to Professor Eric Tsui for giving his time. This is like a core experience for us who are here. We're learning from abroad. And aside from that, I would also love to give this moment to Professor Eric to give the closing remarks before we close this session.
Thank you very much. I hope that this session has been constructive and fruitful, and most importantly, inspire you to think more and take action to start planning for some COIL. If there are any teachers or educators, in the audience, I would appreciate that if you want to, to broker a call session with me, please make contact with me, and I'll try my best to either hold it with my students or refer you to one of my colleagues who can, help the planning with you. All right. So, and I really mean it. I hope I can broker a core activity with one of the Moroccan universities.
All right. Thank you very much. And at this point in time, I think we're going to close our session. A huge thank you again once more to our audience and to Professor Eric Tsui. Till next time.
Thank you. Until next time. Bye-bye.